Welcome back, everybody, to night number 6 of Pennsylvania Speedweek 2021. They headed up to Port Royal Speedway tonight, and holy cow, was it exciting. I had originally thought maybe I'd go to this race, but the weather looked kind of like it was going to maybe rain. It rained here where I am. It did not rain at Port Royal, so they got in a really great show. We'll start off hot laps, get the track worked in, all that jazz, get the motors warmed up. Logan Wagner is fastest, and I had said last night that Logan was my pick tonight, and unfortunately I wasn't quite correct, but he was hot in the beginning of the night. You go to qualifying, they qualified everybody all together. Logan Wagner was fastest again, and then you had Rico Abreu and Anthony Macri right there. Round out the top 3, so what you got right there is you got Rico, who's pretty fast, pretty strong, a true outlaw, and then you got 2 regulars who are regularly at the front at Port Royal as well, Logan Wagner and Anthony Macri. So heat number 1, obviously they invert top 4 based off of qualifying position. So Logan Wagner started 4th. Lucas Wolfe started up front and just shot out of a cannon. He was gone. And heat number 1 went clean and smooth, no big issues. 5 cars that transferred, so there's 4 heats. So they'd take 5 from each and then 4 from the B main. 5 that qualified were Lucas Wolfe in the 5W. You got Logan Wagner in the Zemco car. Michael Walter in the 33. Dylan Cisney, hometown kid, and Jared Esch in the Chiapelli, number 98. So heat number 2 started off with Justin Peck up front in the lead. Danny Dietrich came around to make the pass in turn 4. So those 2 were the guys who started on the front row, and in turn 4, Danny Dietrich took the lead. So it was pretty clear and easy for Danny Dietrich. He just cleared away. Mike Wagner was able to put on the throttle jockey a little bit, get up to 2nd place by the end of the show. Justin Peck got 3rd place out of that. He was running 2nd before that occurred, that he got passed by Mike Wagner at the very end. Rico Abreu ended up 4th, and AJ Flick in the 2 was the final car to transfer out of heat number 2. You go to heat number 3, and the front row is just star-studded. Freddie Raymer, Kyle Larson. So you got one of the guys who's big around the Pennsylvania area, and you got Kyle Larson. So Larson started on the outside. He kind of came back and took a dive underneath in turn number 1, got the lead for the heat race, and, what more are you going to do when Kyle Larson's in the lead? Anthony Macri was in this heat race. He's always exciting to watch and always a strong competitor at Port Royal, so it got exciting with him, and the same goes for Sam Hafertepe. Those 2 were battling a bit. Sam Hafertepe got the better of Anthony Macri by the end of the deal, and I was impressed by Sam Hafertepe at that point in time. I thought Hafertepe was going to be able to bring it forward a bit and maybe contend later on in the night. So by the end of heat number 3, you got Kyle Larson up front. Freddie Raymer came home P2. Sam Hafertepe was able to round out 3rd. Anthony Macri 4th. And 5th place was Cy Lynch, who is Ed Lynch Jr.'s son. And Cy had made his debut in the race tonight and obviously made the feature. Another star-studded lineup for the heat race for heat 4. Brent Marks and Lance Dewease were on the front row, and then you also had a couple other guys further into the field that were still competitive. Paul McMahon was one of those guys. He got a great start and was off running very clear, very easily clear, I should say, of getting into the A main for the night. Brent Marks cleared Lance Dewease and cleared out and ran away. Lance Dewease kind of started closing back in by the end of the heat race, but just didn't have enough time and didn't have enough in it to make the pass. So the end of heat number 4 comes down. You got Brent Marks taking the victory in the final one for the night. Lance Dewease qualified in P2. Paul McMahon got 3rd. Jeff Halligan got 4th, a guy who's been pretty darn strong at Port Royal this year. And Cody Lehman, however you want to say it, was the final transfer out of heat number 4. So everybody who didn't make it from their heat races got sent to the B. And the B main had a frantic start all over the place, but clearing out pretty easy for Ryan Smith to make some time and get his car way ahead, so he was pretty clear and gone. Pat Cannon was also in pretty good form pretty early into the running. It was pretty exciting at the start, and it was exciting the whole way through, actually. I shouldn't say it was exciting only at the start, but it was exciting the whole way through, but you could kind of tell those 2 were going to make it. 3rd back was not quite the same, so there was a lot of pretty good racing right there. By the end of things, Darren Pittman was in that battle. He kind of got away from being in a risky situation, but there was a really great battle between Gerard McIntyre and Tyler Reeser for the final position in the B main to get into the feature, and that fight went on for a while. Tyler Reeser kind of fell back from it, and then Blaine Heimbach was able to catch up to Reeser, and those two kind of got close to fighting a little bit for the spot that could get you potentially to a fight into the A main, but by the end of it, it was pretty clear and dry. So Ryan Smith had taken the lead and was gone. Pat Cannon got P2 in the B main, so he qualified for the feature. Darren Pittman got the Swindell Speed Lab car into the main in his first night with PA Speedweek this week. And Gerard McIntyre was able to solidify that last spot, which was important, I think, because Gerard McIntyre is a regular at Port Royal, and he had stellar performances at Lincoln and almost didn't even make the feature at Port. It's an interesting situation because, Gerard's definitely a credible driver and has had success, and he had a good run or two this year. He has a top 3 to his name at Port Royal this season, but obviously just came out swinging at Lincoln, and it was pretty easy for him to get cleared and away there. So definitely kind of showed maybe he's got some hidden talent with Lincoln that he might maybe exercise in the future. So this feature was a hell of a good show. It was excellent, especially at the end. So we'll start at the beginning. Obviously, Anthony Macri drew the pole in the redraw, and he got a really great start. Brent Marks did not have a good start to things. He ended up pulling off the track within, I think it was maybe the first lap, or maybe it was the second lap, and he had some sort of mechanical issue. They got it refired, but by the time the second caution came around a few laps later, he had already called it for the night. So definitely a big blow for Brent Marks in the PA Speedweek points system and points running. So he's kind of got to get back into form where he had at Lincoln and Baps if he wants to get back into the swing of competing at the top end of that standings. So you go from the restart. They had called a yellow because of the Brent Marks situation, and Lucas Wolfe was able to get up to the front, he started up front, but he was able to get there with Macri for a little while, and then Macri cleared, and he was gone. And he was pretty easily far and ahead. Rico Abreu and Kyle Larson had a great little race going back and forth. They were in 4th and 5th at that time, I believe, maybe 5th and 6th. And they were going back and forth, slide jobs, crossovers, a lot of really great fast racing. They ended up catching up to Danny Dietrich while racing each other, and they got Danny involved in their now 3-way race for position. There was a yellow, and that came from AJ Flick. He spun it and wrecked in turn number 1, his number 2 car, and then big news, big Anthony Macri coming into that corner can't get the car woed down and away enough, and he slides into the wrecked number 2. So the race leader, Anthony Macri, obviously a very strong competitor every time he goes to Port Royal, and he's done. And that was really tough to see. Anthony, definitely one of the big shots, or big names of being able to compete with invaders at Port Royal, and just really unfortunate for Anthony. He's had some tough luck lately. Under the yellow, we also saw a fire. So one of the shock covers on Michael Walter's car caught, and they were able to put it out, and I believe Walter even got back out on the track. I might be wrong about that one. I'm pretty sure they pushed him off and he was good to go. But that was a little interesting thing that also happened under that yellow. So off the restart on that one, Danny Dietrich had a really great restart, and he was running the top really, really well, and that continued all night long. Kyle Larson also got a really great start, and so Dietrich was able to start catching up to Halligan, and then Larson was right there behind those two. Jeff Halligan had gotten himself up further and was adopted second, actually, because of the yellow with Macri getting put on the trailer. There was just a huge, great race of cars. So Lucas Wolfe had kind of cleared originally, and there was a nice race with Halligan, Dietrich, Larson, Abreu, Dewease started getting into things a little bit in time, but it really took lap traffic kind of bunching them back up. But obviously they bunched back up, and then you had Lucas Wolfe, Kyle Larson, Lance Dewease, Danny Dietrich, Jeff Halligan, Rico Abreu, just like a whole ton of guys all right there together, racing really strong, back and forth, crossovers, slide jobs. It was stellar, absolutely stellar. If you can watch the replay or you had Flow Racing, you got to watch it, but highly recommend watching that replay. That was so great. It was excellent racing. back and forth the whole way to the end. And it sort of became a 4-horse show in time. Abreu and Halligan kind of fell off, and you were left with Kyle, you were left with Dietrich, Dewease, and you were also left with Lucas Wolfe. And Wolfe was clear and ahead, but once he fell into the grasps of the guys behind him, it was kind of over for Lucas Wolfe. He kind of used the car up early, I think, and whereas Lance Dewease held on till the very end to really put the binders on. So at the very end of the race, I think Dewease was kind of the best of the group of them, but he just never got the chance to pass Larson, who had managed to make a couple passes, got into the race lead, and then, like I said earlier, Kyle Larson's in the lead. What are you going to do? But Danny Dietrich was really strong right there, and Lance Dewease and Dietrich had a really great battle up to the bitter end of that race. I mean, out of turn 4, the last lap, they were right there with each other and racing hard. Lance Dewease was able to pull that off, and I think if there had been a yellow in the late stages, or if there had been a couple more laps in the race, Lance Dewease definitely would have been able to put more pressure on Kyle. I'm not saying he was going to win, but definitely would have been able to put some more pressure onto the lead there. Not that he wasn't already. I mean, it was pretty exciting and cool to see. But end of the night, Kyle Larson won. Lance Dewease was able to pull off second. Danny Dietrich got third. Lucas Wolfe was fourth. Rounding out the top 5 was Rico Abreu. Jeff Halligan was sixth. Mike Wagner kind of pulled it off at the end of the race. He just kind of started making spots up, kind of lurking in the background. Got seventh. Eighth place was Freddie Raymer, who would have finished further up. I don't really know exactly where he would have finished, but he blew a tire on the last lap, so he kind of had to squeeze himself into the 8th spot. Paul McMahon finished 9th for CJB, and then rounding out your top 10 was Logan Wagner in the Zemco number 1. I always do power rankings, and I figured I'd do power rankings and personal rankings because I think the power rankings don't really show my personal reaction as much. They kind of incorporate the statistics of what's been going on all week long, right? So it doesn't really give you a good representation of maybe how I feel or maybe the immediate recent ranking of who would be hot. So I'll start with the power rankings because that's, we've been doing that. Lists on the screen. Obviously, Kyle Larson's at the top. I said it last time. I said if Kyle Larson won again, completely different story about the power rankings. And I was right because Kyle Larson obviously is at the top of the list. Danny Dietrich has been stupid consistent. And outside of just one bad finish, he's been up in the top 5 a lot. And so obviously he surpassed Brent Marks this time because Marks was unable to complete the race. So that was a pretty big blow for the consistency on Marks's end lately. Rico Abreu in 4th place. He's been pretty solid. Always been a contender at some point, if not the whole way through the night. Lance Dewease back up on the board with being back on the track at all, and then obviously having a great finish in the top 3. Lance Dewease back up there. Lucas Wolfe sitting in, P6 actually. Yeah, Lucas Wolfe had a good night, but I think could have been a little more. This ranking includes everything from the week. So Justin Peck is the guy who's actually in 7th right there on the list. And, Peck's been pretty consistent. He's had some poor luck and he's had some good finishes. It's ups and downs. He won a race too. Anthony Macri in 8th. I think huge blow. He definitely would be much further up if he hadn't have had the incident and he slid into a stopped car, which, I don't drive a 410. So I'm not going to say anything more. It's a tough break, and it's tough to see. Anthony's, good guy, cool car, good driver. Freddie Raymer, 9th. Freddie Raymer's pretty consistent, pretty solid, basically anywhere you go in Pennsylvania. And then rounding out the top 10 be Ryan Smith, who's just been quiet consistent, and his run in the B main tonight, I think, showed he maybe didn't start the night off perfectly, but he definitely is still there. So then we go to my personal rankings, and I'll lead off right away, maybe not the fact that Ryan Smith is not on this list. I am hard-pressed to not put him in it, but I think these guys all in front of him kind of deserve it a bit. So, obviously, first up, Kyle Larson. I'm not even going to explain that. Lance Dewease in 2nd. Lance is very strong. He's so good on the bottom anytime the track gets worn out, and just being there and the show he put on tonight and how good he is when he comes, I definitely put him 2nd. He's really the only guy who can catch back up to Larson from PA, that is. Danny Dietrich in third on this list, obviously consistency. Lucas Wolfe, you know, I gave him a lot of credit for how well he ran in the beginnings of the night, and then, you know, he's been okay recently in this PA Speedweek show, so he's fourth. Brent Marks, I would move him down to fifth because he still was doing really well. Obviously, he was, you know, capable of winning a heat race, so definitely worth putting on the list. And I think had he not had technical issues, he would have been a factor in the show, and we would have maybe even had another guy racing at the top end. Rico Abreu would be my guy in sixth place. He's just been consistent and strong. Jeff Halligan, I put him up there because of the stellar performance he put on tonight. And I know Jeff's kind of one of those guys who has to do it on his own a bit, but that 45 car has been hooked up pretty good this year. He's won, and he got a pretty good showing out of tonight as well. Sam Haferteep, that's one that's kind of a sleeper, sitting in eighth right there. He's been pretty consistent, been pretty solid. He's had some moments where he's been strong, and he's qualified well at times. So, you know, Sam's always a good driver, always a good person to watch for a solid finish. And that's why I put him up there, especially with sort of the result that, you know, maybe not the result outright that he had tonight, but just, you know, he drove a good race. Freddie Raymer would be ninth. He's consistent, quite consistent lately, but still consistent. And then I would put Anthony Macri on this list. I really wanted Macri on the list because obviously, you know, he was leading the race at one point in time and cleared in a way, but just it's the little things sometimes. And yeah, I think he deserves to be on the top 10. So there you go. There's my two lists. The next race on the schedule is going to be Hagerstown, which should be exciting. I'm still on the wall if I'm going to be there. I obviously wish I could be everywhere, anywhere, anytime to watch sprint cars, but, you know, I met Walt Dyer at Williams Grove. They were talking about the Walt Dyer tribute stuff they're doing, and I'd love to be able to go and be there and see that, but it's a bit far. I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of bleak on me going to Hagerstown, but in terms of people to watch, I think Dewease is the big one, and then Brent Marks and Danny Dietrich are also the guys to see if they can spoil the party. I would say one of those guys might be the one to pull off the win. I would say probably Dewease would be my pick, maybe Brent Marks, but I would say number one, Dewease. And then if it's going to be an invader, I don't think it's going to be Haferteep, but I think Haferteep might be one of the stronger invaders. I feel like Paul McMahon's going to be pretty solid. If I was going to pick an invader to win Hagerstown, though, I think I'd have to pick, I want to say Rico, but somewhere in my mind it's telling me Peck. So I know I basically just listed off everybody, but Peck's been strong and he's had ups and downs, but Rico has been consistent. So that's the whole ordeal. Port Royal is one of the best racetracks in the country, I believe. I think it's number one on the list if you ever go to Pennsylvania to see a sprint car race, to go to Port Royal. That's probably the best one, experience-wise, racing-wise, that you could see, and field-wise too. So it put on a stellar performance tonight. The rain held off up there. It didn't hold off where I am, but held off over there. So gave us a chance to get a good race in and bring some momentum to Hagerstown tomorrow if it doesn't rain out. So be looking forward to seeing what Hagerstown holds next time. But until then, hopefully you guys are enjoying the series and the videos, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.